If I ever go looking for my heart's desire again, I won't look any further than my own backyard.
We're both still here.
Awesome. Step one.
Steps everywhere. So how you been doing?
Good. I'm lying. I've been in the dark night of the soul.
Yeah,
But it's been wonderful. I mean, we're supposed to break, so it's been a nice journey.
Yeah.
Breaking.
Well, good. Well, that's how we got to look at it, because it is that growth process, and we all are going through it. Everybody is going through it right now. It's
exactly
inevitable.
It's a collective, so it's heavier than normal.
Yeah,
but
actually, just said that to somebody. I was like, well, at least we know it's everybody.
Exactly. Yes. We're not special today.
We all are.
Yeah. All right. That's actually the better way to look at it. Yeah. Yeah. How are you?
I'm doing good. I mean,
good.
About the same, like exploring different versions of because it's kind of weird, because it's hard to plan or make like steps for the long-term future, because nobody really knows what the long-term future is, and then like you're dealing with kids, so I'd be interested in know what's like happening with, because my kids are like having a breakdown, like they just have no motivation, they no longer, you know what I mean, like I'm like, are you doing your work? And it's like, yeah, we're doing our work, and they're totally talking to their friends on their Chromebooks, not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and you know what I mean, it's like we're all kind of okay, what's next now? We're ready for the next part now.
Yes. And I think like that's kind of the hardest part, because nobody can tell us when next starts. And like for me and my personality, I thrive when I have things to look forward to. Mm-hmm. Like that's like kind of how I live. Like, yes, I'm doing this next. Mm-hmm. And there's like no next.
Right.
It's just, you're going to crawl deeper inward. You're going to go a little bit further inward. And it's like, oh, I've been going inward for so long.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of beauty in that. And when I step outside of it, I can see the beauty. But when I'm in it, it's hard. And I think that's what our kids are feeling. I think, probably one of the hardest parts is that, and I don't know, I feel like I'm kind of failing at this as a parent, but we're in this age of distraction. Mm-hmm. And so how many people are really feeling versus just numbing out to, social media and what's on the tablet. And I feel like when we take that away, it would probably be a little different.
Yeah, well, to an extent, right? Because I feel that too. I mean, like the other day we're all cleaning, and my daughter's like, "Yeah, mom, yeah," and I'm like, I was so frustrated, I just snatched it right out of her hands, and she was like, "Oh," like, oh my gosh, she means it, Like, and I went over and I grabbed the game system and I took him in my room and I put him under the chair and I was like, "That's it," But then at the same respect, like right now, I'm talking to you. We're having like a social moment. Like I don't ever get to see you. We don't get to interact because of all of this. She's talking to her friends in there. They're on their group chat. They're doing their thing that they do. My son's downstairs playing his video games, talking to his friend. Like we're all like having a social time right now.
It's their outlet. It's all they have. So that's why I'm saying I'm failing, because I'm not over here like, no, you need to get off your device. No, I mean, that's their socialization.
Exactly. They need it.
Mm-hmm. We all need it. We are connective creatures. We are built for community. Mm-hmm. And the main thing that this COVID-19 has done is taking community away in some respects. In other respects, it's really built community. So, it's a catch-22 for sure.
Well, I think it is, but I think what it's done also, like we're going inward, right? We're having these moments. We're having, like my cousin's over here the other night, and we're both having this moment with each other, kind of like holding each other up. You know what I mean? Then we leave, and we're both like, "Oh, that was kind of silly for me to feel that much, intensity," but we're like all feeling it. It's making us re-examine our structure of self. and
Yes.
where we're at. So when we go through that restructuring of or reexamination of what we'd like to see our new structure be, or what our actual structure is, we realize where we fit into our social norms. Like, maybe in this group I was okay with this, and this, and socially you just let people be who they are and do what they do. But then when having to sit and see what what that social group or what this one is about, like, am I really a part of that? Am I really a part of this? Are we all really a part of that? And then, like, because it's all, as we as individuals re-examine, there's the collective re-examination, and so everything is
Yeah.
kind of shifting, and then we're all sitting here going, okay, well, where do we shift, because we don't have that long-term goal to focus, to funnel, and it's like it's a big huge, like, wide wave instead of a directed course.
Yes. And this is making me think about I I heard a call, a call was made to spend some time during these dark nights in prayer, and to
Mhm.
wake up in the middle of the night and to pray.
Mhm.
And I have found that practice to be pretty soothing, just the quietness and the stillness of the dark and of the night. And I was very lucky. I had the opportunity today to listen to a mystic poet, and her words just rattled my core. And she was like, we're just not broken enough.
Right.
We need to keep breaking and breaking and breaking until there's no hope left. And from that place, we will see how the new paradigm will emerge. It
Right.
is through that piece, when we are completely without light. So we're like the moon, the only light we have is
Mm.
the reflection of God's light.
Mm.
And I thought that was so powerful. And
Definitely.
so I'm like kind of on this journey. Okay, I'm broken. I know I'm broken. I'm crawling, but I need to get belly down. I need to lie flat.
It makes it like dust, right? Like the
Yeah.
glass has to be turned back into sand before it can be reconstituted as glass.
Yes. So
You know?
that's where we are.
Yeah.
We're not
Oh, we're
into
not
the
ready
next
yet.
stage. We're not ready. We're still dying. Rebirth is not yet here.
Right? We're just in the death throes. Well,
Yes, we're gestating right now.
yeah.
So
No.
yeah,
Well, at least we know that it is everyone, that
yeah.
it isn't just us, and
And
that the kids are, I mean, what are we gonna do but sit?
yeah, and we're gonna come out of this. We're gonna come out of this the new version, the new and improved version. And ultimately, there's lots of thoughts around these special times. This is a very, very special time to be incarnated on this planet right now. And we are all here because we chose to be here at this time. And so we have some really big things ahead of us. So it's kind of nice to have this opportunity of stillness
Yeah.
and quietness to a level that we've never had. And I
No.
think that is probably more so what I'm struggling with anything else. And not that this is Jana's struggle hour, but
No.
is the fact that our structures just want us to continue to produce.
Right.
Like my 15-year-old said something to me that I thought was pretty profound. He said, Mom, I out of all of the things that will happen in my life, this is probably going to be like one of the most I don't even remember the exact words he said, but this event, this shutdown, this virus, this pandemic, is probably going to be the biggest historical moment of his life. And he's like, I just don't understand why all the expectations are still there. Like, I'm grieving the loss of my teenage years.
Oh my God, it makes me want to cry.
Yeah, like he's grieving the loss of his teenage years. He should be um, making me turn gray.
Right.
you know?
Right.
And yet, you know, all of those things aren't in place. Like, he should be in driver's training, but the backlog, because it was shut down for so long, the backlog is so long that he's not able to take it right now. So just those rites of passage, you know, and yet school is just there, you know, do this, do that, do this, do that. And, you know, that we've really expected our kids to become 47-year-old businessmen and women
No,
overnight.
right.
Check
No.
emails, turn this in on this date, do this on this date. And I'm going to be really interested to see like how many kids make it out of this okay and how many families make it out of this okay, because I mean, we're an educated family. You know, I'm a teacher. I have a little bit of extra tools in my toolkit, and we are struggling.
Right.
You know, and like you were saying, like the lack of motivation, it's so prevalent, you know, and so on the parent end, I can't just be mom and
Right.
provide that grief space and that that holding of that container, because ultimately I'm still also the one who's holding the structure.
Right.
You know, no, this needs to be done. No, you need to redo this. You need to rethink about it. No, look at what the question said. You know, and I'm
Right.
not saying like that's not our job as parents, but it really is an added layer during this collective grieving period. And I think that's the next thing that I'll go into is the lack of grieving.
No,
You know, we
yes.
have
Thank
people
you.
dying all over the place. I mean, I've lost at least 5 people that I know in the last 2 weeks,
I'm so sorry.
whether it was COVID or something else.
Still,
And
yes.
there's like no real grieving, you know, because like funerals aren't being held the way that they
Right.
used to be. But not only that, but like, again, that life is so hard just trying to do work from home and parent. And it's like to step away to grieve, it's just that it's not there. So it's just like, oh, I'm so sorry that that person died. And now let me go back to what's next on the to-do list. So
And
it's really weird.
it is. But it's also like the lack of honor because there's like that feeling like because I think that you're absolutely right that this is a very, very important thing to discuss because we all are basically in a collective grieving process where we're like we're not ready to it's not quite done yet. So we can't really grieve it yet because there's we have to keep that barrier boundary protection up in order to stay sane, because if we start grieving now, we're just going to keep grieving and there's no definitive time where we're like, okay, well, it's okay now, so everybody can just sit and have their good cry. It's like we have to keep pushing and going through it. And I'm so sorry for your losses.
Oh,
And
thank you. I really
yeah,
appreciate that.
because it's terrible, and we have all had these losses. Like my friends, have lost their parents. People have lost their uncles, their grandparents. You know what I mean? My uncle's been in and out of the hospital, and it's like, you're like, what? You can't, you drop food off on their porch and you feel like guilty, but you're like waving at them in the window and their cat, and they're like, oh, and like, this is not this is like emotionally, okay, we're confronted with this gate. Okay, we also have to stay at the gate. Like, we have to keep our if the mask was a metaphor, if the washing of our hands and the plexiglass and all of that was a metaphor for our emotional response to this right now, because what it's going to do is give us collective PTSD. What we're doing right now is being deeply, severely traumatized as a collective, and our children are too. And it is interesting because I'm not an educator, but I was raised by an educator. I have one in my house, so I do have a little bit more of that, like you're saying, toolkit that is available. And like, you have given me tools that are effective, very effective, and like, to be able to have those things available, and it's still like feeling helpless when your kids are crying or trying to process this, or I haven't seen my friend in so long and their friend is having a hard time. And then, you know what I'm saying? Like, I had a 13-year-old show up at my house at midnight, walked 2 miles in the rain to my house. And I'm like, before she even came in the door, I was like, you're calling your mother right now. Because we're like, they just want out. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, there's this, if we don't know how to handle it, we're going to all go off the rails. And then this is, not good. And so we have to be able to allow that of ourselves, I think,
Yeah.
to say, you like come in, or to tell the kids it's okay, let's talk about it, let's feel this for a minute, let's like figure out a way that you can, like, I'm not going to take away your games and make you do these things all the time. So, but what winds up happening is there winds up being this like this value on other things. Okay. So we might not be focusing on our homework like we should, but she's got like a binder full of characters and this whole storyline and like all of these
Yeah.
thing that like this effort, artistic effort, expression, focus, she's working, you know,
Yeah.
my son is playing music. He's building this repertoire of things. And like, as an artist, I understand the need. I told Lennon, I was like, I don't think cathart is a word, but if that's what it is, we need that. We need that. Like, there needs to be this cathartic let go right now. Whatever your process is allowing you to do, that seems to me more important. We could repeat the seventh grade. The seventh grade will be there next year. Right now, go ahead, draw your characters, do your music, sit with
Yeah.
your what you need to do, because when they get like nervous and they get upset, it's shutting down all of they're not really receiving any of
Their
that information.
creativity.
Yeah, but I mean, in
Yeah.
the schoolwork, when they're feeling stressed, all of that is just putting more stress. And then like they could fill out the work and get it done, but walking away from it, I don't think they're retaining any of that information. I don't think any of that lesson is staying with them anyway. So it's important for if that work to be done for something that's benefiting them.
Yes. And I think like that is the beauty of the direction that I hope that we take. It's going to be the poets and it's going to be the musicians and the artists that dream the new future. I mean, that's where the vision comes from. And so we need these little creative people. This is making me think of something that I recently stumbled upon. And it has been like so profound to me that it's like reshaping some of my viewpoints on things. So I think I'd like to share it with you.
Yeah, yeah, I love it.
But it's this concept that the opposite of holding on is not letting go. The opposite of holding on is digestion.
Mm-hmm.
And I said that to my husband after I read something. He's like, "What does that mean?" And I said, "I have no idea, but I love it." And
Mm-hmm.
so I've been going on this journey of trying to figure this out. Like, what does that mean? And through this process, what I've realized is it's so true. Because what happens is, an event happens and we have to chew on it for a minute. And then we have to swallow it. And then we have to digest it. And the end product of what ends up happening is a creation that we create. But what happens a lot of times is we keep it in our stomach fluid and we regurgitate it.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens when you regurgitate? Well, it comes with acid and all kinds of other stuff. And then you just have to swallow it again.
Right.
So it's like, how do we allow things to move through us authentically? And
Mm.
how do we provide that space to allow things to enter, come down, and ultimately out the way it's supposed to? We're supposed to
Right.
eliminate all of these things that we have. And so I found that to be a pretty profound way to look at it.
Yes.
And so I've really been shifting my mindset into how do we honor each of those steps and how can we teach that? That's where my brain always goes. It's
Right.
like, how do I make this applicable? How can we teach this? Because, we're not always supposed to be happy and to be in joy. We are supposed to have the full range of emotional experiences.
Mm-hmm.
However, we need tools that don't keep us in despair.
Right.
Ultimately, there is a cohort of people who are supposed to live like that. They signed up in this life to be broken and broken and broken and broken, and ultimately to hold the light for others. And that is a role. And I think for the people who walk that path, that is a very honorable path to walk. But for the majority of us, We are here with our duality, we're light and we're dark. We're here with that duality, and there has to be room for breath for both. And I think like that's kind of what I'm learning right now is like I can be in complete despair and broken and shattered on the ground and at the same time still hold joy.
Mm-hmm.
And like how do we function like that? And I think like that's what this is teaching us is like how to hold that duality, that we can be both broken and completely in love with life, all in the same breath. And like I just find that to be like fascinating.
Well, it is.
Like that's what's blowing my mind right now,
No, I love this. And what kept coming to, like, when you're talking about it is like when you drink water, like you're drinking water right now, right? Like that will flush through your system. You give water to plants, it flushes through their system. It takes kind of even the good nutrients away with it. If you drink too much water, all of a sudden your pH is clear. You like now you have to put new good stuff too because you've just like evacuated everything. So if we're just letting go of stuff, we're letting go of like vital nutrients as well. We're not just holding on, like, not, you know what I mean? Like, so it's like about, like you're saying, it's like if you put just a little bit of oil in your water, lemon oil, whatever kind you like, or a little bit of pinch of salt, your body has to digest that water. It has to put it through your organ systems to process it, so then you don't just flush everything away. You know what I mean? You keep some of the water. You become more hydrated because you've given it a chance to go through your system. And I really like that. It's totally true because I think that is also part of what has been so wrong with what has caused us to come to this point, because we've been denying ourselves that not the digestive process, the duality, the allowance of like like not because a lot of times when we're broken, we feel guilty about feeling joy because we're not supposed to be happy right now. We're supposed to be broken. You know what I mean? And then it's like, no, I'm not happy because I'm broken. I'm happy too. There's things to be grateful for. There's things to be joyful about. There's fun to be had. And I mean, that's what the laugh or cry is, just the same teetering, like, and that's hysteria when you're like, I'm laughing and I'm crying and I'm laughing and I'm crying. That's like a really, really, really tired 2-year-old who cannot decide. And it's like experiencing both things at the same time, legitimately. And letting that be, because I think that too, that that the point that you're making that's so important is that we're allowed to feel both those things at the same time. And if we don't like allow that digestion to happen, that process that we're supposed to do, then we're denying ourselves the nutrients. We're keeping this everything, or we're letting it all go instead of picking out what we were supposed to have.
And I think, where the power lies is, what does elimination look like for you? Like, what is your end product? Because ultimately, we're not fully living unless we're producing our soul's work. You know what I mean? So like for you, it's definitely your digital art. I'm like your favorite fan. I'm like, I get the top fan award. I just do.
You do. You do. I love you. I appreciate you so much.
And that's your elimination. Like that's what comes out at the other end. For me, it's poetry. And I don't share my poetry yet. I'm not there. And a lot of it is because of the duality that I live. My forward-facing face is a lot different than my inward-facing face.
Yeah.
And so, I'm being called to action of how do I build that bridge? And I'm doing it, but it's definitely a process, How do I truly live in all of my authenticity? Or do I want to truly live in all my authenticity? I think that I can be my frontward-facing face and my inward-facing face on 2 different platforms and let that just be what it is. So I'm still in this, what do I want to emerge as, and I guess that kind of leads us into another whole question is like, who do I want to be?
Well,
Who am I?
Okay, so just because there's many shades of gray doesn't mean that black isn't black and white isn't white, and you don't have to have both can coexist, right?
Yes.
That duality of both. So your work, your interior work that you're catharting, right? I'm
Yeah.
just going to use for that word, but that your poetry, your writing, your inward facing face may need to be left alone from your outward facing face so that it can be its fullest and its most intense and raw and what it needs to be in order for it to be true. And so does your frontward facing face, because this face also needs to be true and honored, and both of them are true, and neither of them need negate the other,
Yeah.
and sometimes if you make them face each other too much, and then they become one thing, and then they lose the purity of self that they are. Okay, so and
Yes, I
that's what's
love that.
important. We have to be able to experience these things and have these aspects of self without feeling like there's something wrong with any of it, right?
Yeah, I
Like
totally agree.
it's deluding ourselves.
And I think like that is,
DIL.
it's just breaking down all the illusions that we are built with. And ultimately, you know, who I thought I was in my early 20s and that life that I designed for myself, I'm not that girl anymore. I'm not her. I've changed so many times since then. Yet, she has given me my foundation. And I love that. And I'm in love with that foundation. And at all the same time, I'm still dreaming. I'm dreaming of the ways in which I'm being asked to serve and the ways that I'm being called to serve. And one of those ways is this outward facing girl that I have been. She has a service role in this life. And so, um, you know, that's beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
That's it. That's all there is to say about that.
No, yeah, well, it's like your Sunday dress. The clothes that we wear for certain occasions are appropriate for those occasions, and you wouldn't deny that, like these are my work boots. This is what I wear when I paint. This is like this is my smock, and it's covered in all of my yuck and gook. It smells like turpentine, and you know what I'm saying. And I'm certainly not going to wear that to grandma's house for Christmas dinner. That's just not the way it's going to be. But you know what I'm saying. I'm still going to dress for
Yes.
me. I'm still going to be me. It's not going to be, you know what I'm saying. It's just that they're to expect us to be consistent all the time would also be kind of like not because we have to be where we are when we're there, period. We deserve to have like a nice dinner, and we also deserve to take off our shoes and run in the mud and be free doing both of those things. I
Mm-hmm.
think there's a lot of self-judgment, and I think that this time is allowing us to look at that level of self-judgment, and not just on us but on others and on the kids and on the world and on everything, because I thought about this a lot. I mean, I've traveled a lot and spent a lot of time in trains and cars and at airports and just places where you have to sit for a long time and you're by yourself, and like you have to take that time for digestion. There's really nobody to talk to. There's nothing to do, and you got to kind of sit with your thoughts. You know what I'm saying? And that's great for somebody like me who loves to daydream and like likes living in this like extra world. And could you excuse me real quick? I just let my cat out. He's
Of
having a moment.
course. Of
Excuse me.
course.
Okay. It's still there. Okay, sorry about that. But back in like the day before we had technology, and we had to like wait to see if somebody was going to come home or return our call, and before that, people had to like wait for a letter to come in the mail, and before that, and like how long does like this process of communication take, or before you get that second piece of your information, that response to whatever it is, or that you received it and now you've got to go 4 hours, you have to walk on foot to get to your uncle's house in the next block over, and you've got all that time to chew on that inside your brain. And this is like this active meditation that is denied to us because everything is just so like, I'll be there in 10 minutes and you didn't send me a text and blah 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 blah, you know what I'm saying, and all these like things are firing off in our brains. And we don't have time to sit and process. We have no idea how we feel about things. It's just input all the time and a deadline to get there. And suddenly it's like, whoa, full stop. Everybody sit down. And no wonder everybody's having like a little bit of an adverse reaction to it, because my mom would call it inertia sickness. It's like an object in motion stays in motion, so you don't know when to stop, or you're sitting now and you can't move because you're just stuck. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think that's what we're going to see at the end of this. Like, where'd that person go? They never came back.
It's already begun.
Yeah. And I think like that you're totally correct in the way that you're saying that. And I think the piece that's really speaking to me out of all of that is, as a collective, we don't know how to sit with ourselves. We don't know how to sit with our own thoughts. And like people like us where, you know, I don't know, and I'm sure you're the same way, but like the world in my head is fabulous. I love living in my head.
It's great here.
I will entertain myself for hours. You know,
Yeah.
I will set an alarm, wake up at 4 a.m. just to go hang out with myself in my own brain. So, but there's a whole lot of people who've never done that. And so that's a lot of the work that I'm actually training on. I just realized, I think I just did my 60-second training, 62 trainings since COVID started.
Wow, congratulations. That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. I just realized that. I was like, wow, I've really been doing a lot of trainings. And so much of what I'm trying to communicate is we need to get to a place where we can sit with ourselves. But in order to do that, we first have to decide, like, do I even like myself? Because that's really what we're seeing here, is how many people don't even like themselves.
True.
You know, they don't like the life they've created. They don't like the person that they are. And so because of that, we turn to distraction.
Right.
You know, instead of turning to allowing it to just be what it is. And then when we know better, we do better.
Right.
And then functioning out of that. Because this is the thing. Once you learn to be self-reflective, it never stops.
Right.
It never stops, you know, and you learn that practice of how to look in the mirror, how to point the finger at yourself, or how to say, ooh, that is a pattern of behavior that served me at some point in my life. But I now realize that it's probably just a defense mechanism that was there to protect me at some point in my life. And at this stage, it's no longer serving me or anyone else. But how do we get people to sit down and, number one, have the vocabulary to articulate that? Because a lot of times we don't have the structure to look at ourselves. You know, that structure, it doesn't exist. We're not taught anywhere. You know, we're not taught this it's not part of our culture. You know, we don't teach our kids how to say, you know what, sometimes it is us, sometimes it is you. And so what does that mean? You know, is this an experience you can learn from, you can grow from? Can you accept that quality within yourself? Do you want to accept that quality within yourself? But how do we start viewing our reactions and our decision making as what it is? You know what? That's a product of my trauma.
Right.
I really need to learn some new skills. Or you know what? That choice that I made, I want to be more like that person. So I need to learn how to make more choices like that. But to look at our lives like that, like with that reflective mirror. And so that's really part of the podium that I've been standing on with people. Is teach them how to go through that journey. Because ultimately, if we want to change the generation of children, we have to teach them this work.
Right.
And if we don't know how to do it ourselves, there's no way we can teach it.
Well, exactly. But it's also there's what you're making me think too is about like this gratification, right? Because there's got to be a cookie or a reward of some sort to make people want. I mean, people generally do things for two reasons. One, because they hurt so bad that they have to make the change, right? They hurt so bad that they have to make the change. And then even in that respect, even when they're hurting that much, they still expect they need some kind of incentive to do that. There still has to be some kind of, and you can say in 10 years, you're going to have like the greatest life ever and you're going to feel absolutely wonderful. And none of this is even going to be in your perspective. And they're like 10 years, you know what I mean? But I got to do this right now. This, and this is my reality. So because I'm finding this like, well, not just within myself and with my kids and with everything, but when you start to like try to communicate, I've got this oracle deck, and what is the outcome of this? When you exercise these things, or you look at these things in a different way, how does that reward you immediately? You feel less sad. Okay. You feel more grounded. All right. You have like less anxiety. Okay. Well, I might need to do something that's actually painful to me right now that is going to reward me down the line. You know what I mean? I might have to let go of something. I might have to confront something. I might have to do something that's probably going to be pretty painful in order to get to the point of healing. I got to break again. Wait, I'm already broken. I'm already in pain. I got to break again. Like, you got to break again, bro. That's all you can do. And they're like, ooh, like, well, maybe I don't want to break it all, because if I have to break this many times before I get to the cookie, you know what I mean? Like, is the rat going to keep trying to go through the wall, or is that he just going to like give up before he gets to the cheese? You know what I mean? Like, so that's part of the where the communication becomes, and the vocabulary and the structure has to reward us, give us some sort of peace right now. It's got to give us something
And
to.
Heather, what really this is making me think of is that I piece. What's in it for me? What's in it for me? And the power of this work is that we are all here to serve.
Right.
And so, if we could have a definition of well-being, it comes with passion and community.
Right.
And when we have passion and we have people who are like-minded with that, it comes together and it creates well-being. And ultimately, really what every time I start a training, what I say is, I am here to serve you for the next hour. And so take yourself off mute. Everything's virtual right now. I want to hear what you have to say. Send me a follow-up email, because this is my service to you, and let me tell you why. Because we can look at our life as, what happened to you? What is wrong with you? Or we can change that pointy finger, what is wrong with you? Why are you like this too? How did that come to be?
Right.
And 9 times out of 10, that story will break your heart. It's not going to make you angry.
No.
And then to take it a step further and say, how may I serve you? Let me serve you. And then ultimately that translates into, how can you use this broken piece of you to serve others?
Right.
And so that's why I'm sitting in front of you today serving you, because I'm not going to talk to you about anything that I have not directly experienced. And out of my experience, this is my digestion. This is my offering. This is my elimination. This is my service. And so when we can take that mindset shift away from what's in it for me, to how can I use this to fuel the next wave, to bring hope into the world when we're hopeless, which is where we need to be. If we're flat on the ground, if we are in the dark, belly up, waiting to receive, there can be no hope.
Right.
But then it comes, and then you offer that out. But this is the thing, our journey is not linear.
Right.
Our journey is cyclical.
Right.
And what we're here to learn deeper, deeper, and deeper. So once you feel that wholeness again, and you have that offering, then it's time to break.
Right.
It's time to break again. And when I look at my life that way, I've had the luxury, quote unquote, of having really hard things happen to me.
Right.
And not just at like one age or like at
Right.
one time. Like, my whole life has just been filled with complex trauma, one thing on top of the other. And I can look at that like that and just be like, man, that was really, really shitty. Like, that should not have happened. And I'm broken and yada, yada from that. Or I can be like, but look at each layer every time something happened, how I was able to serve others through that.
Right.
And then this incident happened, and then I was able to serve from that podium. And then this happened, I was able to serve from that podium. So it's really the brokenness within us that creates connectedness among us. Ooh, that should be a bumper sticker.
You got your bumper sticker. Write it down.
But really,
I love it. T-shirt.
You know, the brokenness among us is what creates the connectedness within us. And so allowing people the opportunity to look at their brokenness. And that's what this time is doing. You know, it's giving us that opportunity to look at all the ways life has broken us. And so how can we then use that for service? And I think like that is the mindset that will get us out of that, what is the word I'm thinking of? External reward. You know, here's your cookie, here's your badge, here's your certificate.
Right.
You know, ultimately there is no badge or certificate. It's, I crawled out of that hole. Would you like a hand up?
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. Like, thank you, because it's hard, and it's something, I don't think it's something that we voluntarily choose. Okay. Like ever. So if, and that's kind of rough, because it's like, well, you know, and then this is the question that I ask a lot. And, you know, part of why I pose that to you, do, like, as an artist or as a teacher, you know, you go straight to, well, how can I use this for this? You know what I mean? And as an artist, I kind of like break it down into parts, and I turn it into some weird abstraction and then a metaphor so that I can digest it and then understand what it is. And you're like, we're going to teach this to people. And I'm like, dude, triangles. You see them? You know, it's like
your service, because
right.
your what you offer sparks illumination. You know what I mean? It's like I look at something that you've done and I'm like, it fuels my creativity, because symbolism.
Well, and it's right.
Symbolism is what we need.
It's an experiential image, right? And this is like I keep going, like these pieces ever since I started doing well, the digital collage, but like this unpopular series that like really was like quite unpopular, and it made me like, you know, like top notch with everyone. But I'm like, this is the truth, right? This is the truth of the situation. Like, not either side of whatever. It isn't my job to pick sides. It's my job to interpret what's going on right now in a visual experience, to document it, to process it, to understand the emotional response of the collective, of the audience, of whatever it is. Like, I like here to put this down for this, whatever it is. It is what it is. But that being said, like there's a looks like off on a tangent. There is some sort, I don't say like you get the cookie, but it's a scary process. That's where we were. Okay, do we get to choose to be artists? Do you get to choose to be an educator? Do you get to choose to be a priest? Is this something that's like an archetype? Is this the choice that we have? Is it the type of person that personality that we're born with? Is it nature or nurture? And then how does that, how can we use that to serve others, but also like how does that affect our process in this? Because there's a role for everybody, right? And we're getting down to the brass tacks of ourselves. And to a lot of people, it's a confrontation of self, right? Like, I am being confrontational with myself right now. I have to sit and look at this. I have to have like a little argument or a fight with myself in order to get through it, in order to see what it is, in order to allow myself to break. And it is not, like I said, generally a voluntary process. And so to a lot of people, like maybe like push it away unless there is some sort of self-reward. And it's like, put the mask on first. You know what I'm saying? Like, I might be doing it for selfish means, but it's because I can't feed you unless I've eaten too. Like, I will run out of air and die if I put your mask on before mine. And then, you know what I'm saying? That's how we have to also look at these things, because I don't know if everybody is ready for what has to happen in order for the conversion to be complete, which is a level of selflessness, right? Because we are mourning and we are going through trauma. And as somebody like you or somebody like me or somebody like our kids who've maybe been through some things before and know what to expect from ourselves. I know I'm going to react this way for about 20 minutes. You probably want to stand back. You know what I mean? Like, let me handle my shit and then I'll be able to collect myself, take a deep breath and go. That might not be everybody's reaction. That's my reaction. I know myself. I know what I'm going to do. Now I don't have to worry about that. And when it comes, I know what I'm going to do and I can carry on. They can carry on. We have experience, but a lot of people don't have that. And this is like an initial confrontation. And then they're like, oh my God, I reacted this way. Or, oh God, I did, you know what I mean? And it's like,
Yes. And I think, two things are coming to mind, if you don't mind. The first thing that is coming to mind is, we have to lead by example. Those of us who do have some tools in the toolkit. And I'm not saying we're going to do it perfectly, but by golly, failing is part of the process,
right.
Like we learn from that. And so I feel that the people who I interact with are meant to walk into my life. Like they are meant to be there. The trainings that I offer are on a website, and the people who come are anywhere from people who have children in foster care to people who run daycares to people who are school teachers to administrators. If they work with children, they have the opportunity to attend.
Mm-hmm.
They sign up, and a lot of these people don't know what they're signing up for. Like they know what the heading is, but they have no idea.
Right.
Well, then I offer at this point, I have 11 sessions. It's a series, and I just added 4 more. So I have 15 altogether. And what ends up happening is these people follow me throughout this journey. So by the time we are done with these 15-hour-long sessions, they have tools in the toolkit because something attracted them. So if I've done 62 sessions and I'm having these people follow me, what I encourage people to do is then share this knowledge. Like this shouldn't be hidden. Go home and talk about this with your families. And so that's why people keep coming back, because I'm giving them the tools. The other thing that I really want to add on to this, and I just wrote this today, like literally I journaled this today, so I feel like it's super, it makes sense that this is what this is leading into. But as I'm breaking and learning that I realized today that I'm just not broken enough. I am not completely shattered, so I must keep going. That even in my brokenness, I have a phrase. And the phrase is, I am here. I am here. And what I'm not saying is that I know what to do or that I'm unafraid. I'm not saying that I have it all figured out. I'm not saying that I'm the best of the best. Give me the hardest case. I'm not saying any of that. The only thing that I'm saying is I am here. And use me as you see fit. And when I say that, I'm speaking to the light, to whatever you believe that to be. God, whatever it is to you, nature. It doesn't matter what it is to you. It matters what it is to me. And to me, I'm saying I am here. And so from that place of I am here, I can continue to serve. Even when I'm broken, especially when I'm broken. And so that's like the beauty of going on this inner journey, of this inner work. And if we can teach people the beauty of that, I'm not saying it's not hard. Oh my gosh, I've spent a solid few weeks in just complete despair. And it's a roller coaster, like you said, it's that 2-year-old that's tired. It's like 1 minute I'm laughing and the next minute I'm crying. And, my poor husband, he has no idea what to do with me, He's like, here's a cookie, literally, here's a beverage. Like, which one do you want? I'm like, I don't need to feel better. I need to keep breaking. And, and then he doesn't understand that. He's like, you need to keep breaking. No, you need to get over it. And it's like, no. So it's like I'm teaching him too, like there's beauty in the broken.
Yeah.
And we have to start honoring that. And so I think from that space, people can let down some of their guard. We've always, in our societal structure, it was the more you do, the less affect that you have, the more you just move through things, the higher regarded you are. In this new stage, we have to be like, the more you can accept the brokenness inside of you and yet still hold the light for others. It's not an excuse not to live. I'm not saying here like we need to all break and do nothing. No, like that's not the point.
Being.
But the point is that we can allow that energy into our life and not force the process, not hurry up and chew it and swallow it and eliminate. Right. Because I did that too. I was like, ooh, digest it? Let me just digest it. I wrote like 6 poems in like 2 days. I was like, done.
They're like, but no, there's still more there.
That's not what it's about either. It's about, and then I love that analogy that once you're whole again, then it's time to go through the process again. And I think like that's where we will learn to get comfortable with this, is that it's normal.
Yes, that's the being, like you're saying, like the doing, the pushing, and this is the active as opposed to the passive. And passive doesn't necessarily mean like sitting there and just letting it all go by, but it means allowing it to just be, allowing yourself to just be where you are. I'm here, here I am, because when we're pushing to do, we forget to just be. It's the masculine and the feminine. It's the duality. It's that, like driving force, right? And you're fire and I'm fire. So we're both, even though we're women, we're the force, and it's like the being, the sitting, the stillness, the processing of it and allowing it to be so that we can be broken and rebuilt. I don't want a cookie. I don't want a drink. I don't even want a bath. I just want to cry right now. And then I'm going to go on with whatever it is that I'm doing and get through it. And I think that there's a lot of things that happen in boredom, right? There's a lot of things that happen in this. You really have to allow yourself to be like, just sick of it all. Like, I'm just not interested in this thing anymore. I've watched everything of this. Like, come on, if I have to see one more documentary about that, my brain is going to just pop. You know what I mean? Like, I can't. Yes. And it's like, that's where that happens, where there's like this magic in that complete, like, because then you have to let it rumble through,
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Well, it's a lot.
I love your digesting.
Well, but here's the thing too. It's like, okay, like the becoming whole, like, okay, so like there's like childhood events that happen that you like, okay, so there's this one thing in particular, and I know that thing was like pretty damn significant. And like, so I've re-examined it, and then it's like come up again, and then you re-examine it, and then you think it's like all gone. And then like that, like you're just sitting there one day being completely bored, and you find something and it triggers that thought, and you're like, dude, that's really screwed up. That's like so screwed up. Like, I knew that happened the whole time, but like it never really hit me how effed up that was until right now. And I just found this thing while I'm cleaning in the back of a drawer, and I'm like, oh, that thing, what the hell happened, and then you break again, and then you have to go through this like a whole process of it again. But if I hadn't healed from it a bunch of other times, I would never have gotten to the point where I'd have been able to see it that way. And suddenly, like, all these other things that were reflective of that became something else. And you know what I mean? And that's like, that's where the level up is. It's in a ring in the far back of a drawer that you find when you're trying to, put all the Legos together.
Yeah. And like, I think like that leads into a really good point, is we don't choose when we break. Nobody's like, would you like to break on Saturday the 4th, or would the following month be better?
I got at 2 o'clock on the 4th.
I got at 2 o'clock on the 4th. 2 o'clock's taken. Like, it's not like that. You're exactly right. So that's like so much of this is, and I think that comes down to that part of like cherishing the good times when they're good. Because if you don't, they're going to pass you by.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm finding, especially with our kids at the ages they are, it's, in some ways, it's a blessing that we get to be in their little worlds as much as we have been during these years. You know, I'm not going to lie. I am not upset one bit that my kids are not babies right now. I couldn't imagine doing this with a baby, you know, especially like some of the people I'm working with, you know, they literally have a kid on their hip and they're running a Zoom meeting and, you know, feeding their 5-year-old. You know, my kids are self-sufficient. They're older.
Right.
So, but really, you know, it's a blessing to get to know our kids the way that we're getting to know them in some ways. In other ways, it's like, whew, I didn't know that about you.
Right. But it is good. No, and it teaches us to be family units again in ways that we were, not doing,
And so much of it too is like leading by example. You know, I don't expect my kids to write poetry or, you know, to do the things that I do. But what I want them to see is that, yeah, you know, my mom is upset. You know, I can really tell that she's having a hard time. But I also know she doesn't live there.
Right.
And then look at, you know, I share with my kids a lot of the epiphanies that I have, you know, and a lot of things that I come up with. And I think what has meant the most to me, it's just these really little things, but really like, you know, when my kid looks at me and they're like, how are you? Like that simple question, and they mean it. Like they're like, no, like, how are you, mom? Like, are you okay today? You know, and it's like, thank you for just that sentiment, you know, and the research says that when another person identifies with the way you feel, it naturally releases those feel-good chemicals, those endorphins, you know, the dopamine. It automatically is released just by having another person mirror the fact that they understand how you feel.
Yeah.
And that is the connectiveness, you know, that this isolation is not providing us. You know, if you have people in your home with you and they're at a level to where they can provide that for you, that's wonderful. But we have so many people who are utterly alone.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, we're all in this at a different level. I read a meme the other day. You know, we're all weathering the storm together, except some of us are in a yacht, some of us are in a raft, some of us are, you know, like we're not all in the same ship together. You know, we're in the storm together, but each of us is on a different type of flotation, you know, and I think like that's what we have to be mindful as we're emerging out of this is there's some of us who have been completely cared for, you know, like I've still collected my salary, you know, yes, I'm working from home and yes, I work, but our needs are provided for. You know, we have some people who they're out of work and there's nothing, you know, we were given one stimulus check that literally was a few months in, so it just covered the debt that people had accumulated. You know what I mean? We're not taken care of through this.
No, not at all.
We have, and I don't even think we know exactly how many people aren't being taken care of because there's no, what? Are people going around asking people, you know?
No, definitely not.
Do you have food? Do you have, I mean, I know for my program, you know, we're constantly reaching out to families. What do you need? What do you need? What do you need? We will bring it to you. We will bring it to you. But how many people have that?
Right.
You know, who's asking?
Right.
You know?
Right. Well, I think you're absolutely right. I think that there's a lot of people who are suffering. A lot of businesses have been shuttered. People in service industry have like not had incomes and things like that. But I think it's been a lot of community outreach that has helped sustain this. It's like the people around have helped the people. It's not been it has been grassroots, I guess, would be where it's at with it. You know, I mean, the school system here has been really great about, and then like different some of the different halls, like local like halls that they do carry out, and they're sending food to people and doing things like that are like more charity based, not like come buy our food at our hall and we'll kind of a. So that's been really, really nice that there's that sort of like you're like that connectedness, even though we're disconnected, because a lot of people. So it's really hard right now because it's like everybody's got a valid point. Everybody who's upset about this thing or suffering in this way or having this like, and we do all need to be acknowledged. And I think that there's so much like, well, I'm feeling this way. Well, I'm, this is happening. And then we're all at a loss. And some people are losing loved ones and some people are losing their businesses and some people are losing it all. And we're just like really in need of each other's support in that sense. I don't think people are going around asking, are you okay? Or are you not okay? And I know that my family comes from like large groups of churches. I'm not a part of, obviously I'm not a part of a church or that sort of a thing, but there's still a mode for that, a push for that to be done by the people around, hey, get out there, help others around you, be there for people, do stuff. There is that available. I don't think it is available everywhere. I don't think it is. I think that
No.
a
And
lot of people.
part of the structure has been, you know, some people have it taught to them that by accepting, then they're not doing their part. So then you have the people who are rejecting what they need out of self-judgment. And we see that even in the setting that I work in. Like, this family needs help, but, that pride to accept it is, it's too high. Like, the pride means more than the offering. And that just, we just have to love people for wherever they are. And I think like that's the underlining thing here is we just need to love people, because ultimately that's how the new world is going to be envisioned. It has to come from love, not greed. We see where greed has gotten us, and it's time for that pendulum to swing, and it's swinging.
It is.
It's a little hairy right now. I mean, it's doing that thing where it's just
it's been let.
It's been let go. And so it's just in complete, momentum right now, and it's not settled. And I don't think it's going to settle for a while. I think our life, Heather, you and I, we are going to be in this. This is our life. So we might as well start accepting some parts of it.
I totally agree with you. And I think that it's definitely there. I mean, me, it's astrological, because everything is connected. Everything is connected. So as above, so below. So right now we're coming up to an alignment that hasn't been aligned in a very long time. And it's a very significant time for it to be. I mean, not just Saturn and Jupiter, but also on the solstice. And it's like this, like when you get pulled back, it's because you're going to be released forward. We're connected to galactic center. We are in this space, during the Sagittarius to, it's all of this to say that times they are a change in, and the shift that is a here, and that this is, even though it might seem like we're just at the precipice, this has been long in coming. Okay, this has been happening for consistently. You can see it of coming from the last 10 years, from the last 5 years, 2 years before this. I mean, it's been building and building and building, and as women, we are here to show that being, right, to be here for one another, because there's going to be a lot of like crumbling, and we have to kind of be strong in who we are, and no more of this passive aggressive, no more of this backbiting, no more of this fitting into this old paradigm where everything was competitive and everything was for do, and everything was for go, 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 because that is, like, not to get like feminist, but that's the patriarchal, that's the masculine, that's the do, and we're shifting into the being so that we can allow now.
So we can feel.
Thank you. Feel the feelings your feelings feel, John.
Yes.
It's very, very important. I got like on last year, because I had been doing all this science stuff, and it was definitely in this type of an environment where it was backbiting and go, 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 and competitive, and who's got what, and there was no, it was just like clawing, like crabs in a bucket is this metaphor that has been really, really strong. And I thought, well, this is completely unhealthy, and it's reflective of all these other things. It's not just one group of people. It's not just one setting. It's not just one thing. It's all of it, just exponentially focusing outward. So how do we do this? We have to look at our feelings. Like, what is your reaction, your feeling reaction to this thing? And then how are you reacting to it? What are your thought processes behind it? How does that fuel where you take the next step? And it's, got down storytelling, and it got down all of this. So I'm reading, like I'm trying to figure out, and it does have to do with geometry, and it has to do with all of these things. And I'm touching my voice and like voice search. I'm like this thing, and I wind up getting this completely other topic that it was a emotional emotional effect AI, basically, like this programming software that is developed according to like emotional response. So it thinks about what like a group of people want emotionally, and then okay, so it might not be the best thing to not put the pipeline through this space, but people are emotionally attached to this space because it's a sacred space. It's got everything in it. If we destroy it, it'll never be the same again. So that's what our value system and our thought process is behind it. In the other people, their value system and their process behind it is, well, we need money. We need it to go through this thing. It's going to do this thing. So in order for those two things to even have a conversation, you have to address like the emotional value of each. In order to even be able to communicate with each side, you have to be able to address the emotional value of each to the people involved, or else you're never going to be able to get either side to say, like, this is that. I mean, that obviously I wouldn't want them to I would be on the emotional side of the preservation and not the inclination toward money, but there are these spaces where we cannot communicate because of the emotional bias attached to the logic.
Yeah.
And it is so prevalent, and it is so important in our decision making as individuals, as collective, as how we view things, that unless we sit and say, take the time to mourn, take the time to feel the feelings your feelings feel, go through these processes, break yourself down, understand why these structures are built the way that they are, why the social structures are built the way that they are, why the political structures, economic, why we value the things that we value, and why this other thing has seemed to take precedence, right? Because we all know that we feel this way about it, and that there's something wrong with the way that it's set up, or there wouldn't be a conflict there. And yet we still adhere to this other way, and there's still an argument because we have an emotional confliction. It's so crazy how psychology works, and how understanding our own emotional bias for reasons that we do things what are actually what needs to. You can logic all day long, and it's not going to get you as far as appealing to the emotional self.
And I think the other thing about that, or like to add on to that, is that we don't honor the value that there's more than one truth in this life. Like my truth is the only truth. No, right. You can have a truth and I can have a truth, and they can both be true.
Yes. Yes.
It doesn't have to be that my truth holds more power than your truth. And really, that's a skill I've just learned this past year, is like there can be more than one truth. I can apply that to so many areas of my life where it doesn't need to be black and white. There are so many variations of gray within there. And how do we honor that within ourselves, and just learning how to accept people for where they are. Right. That is another thing that I really communicate. I'm not mad at you. If this is where you are, I love you right there in that space. And we have to honor people for where they are. It's not for us to sing the song of another. No. Or to, make the masterpiece of another. It's for us to do that within ourselves.
Right.
And that's really, this concept of living with non-attachment. I thought that this was so interesting. One of the last classes I did a poll. And I said, have you ever heard of the concept of living non-attached?
Right.
2 people out of 40 said yes. 2 people out of 40.
Wow.
So like that just took our conversation went from let's build this skill to we need to have this conversation.
Right.
Because living non-attached, and this is a concept that I've really explored because I had a lot of misconceptions about it. You know, I used to think, oh, well, if I'm living non-attached, I'm just not supposed to love anything. No, that's incorrect. Or if I'm living non-attached, I just shouldn't care.
Right.
No, that's not it either. Living non-attached means that you give 100% of yourself to whatever you're doing, but you have no attachment to the outcome. So you give your all, and whatever happens, happens. But you can look in the mirror and say, I did the best I could at that time with the tools I have.
Right.
I'm thankful. That is what living non-attached is. And, you know, we do that so much as parents. You know, we hold these attachments to them. But as a parent, I will tell you, the way I am now is not who I was when my kids were little. Because I've learned better and I do better.
Right.
You know, and I'm not perfect, which means who I am in a few years hopefully is better than who I am now. But I know that I'm giving them 100% of my parenting. So ultimately, if they grow up to be, you know, some asshole who continues to hold the structures in place against my will, I just am going to have to accept that and love them through that. You know, because who am I to know what their story is? And so that is really, as parents, something, you know, a philosophy. But then, you know, it comes to so much of our worth is tied to our productivity of work. So, you know, think about this as educators, you know, we have an evaluation system that's based off of student achievement. Well, I can put 100% into a kid. And if they don't have the capacity, guess what? They don't have the capacity. But my evaluation is still reflective of that.
Right.
So a lot of teachers, we don't know how to live non-attached.
Right.
Because our worth is attached to their outcome. But really, they're 2 separate things. You know, I can give 100% of myself to somebody. You know, like, so the kids that I serve typically have significant delays. So for us, like we have kids, their goal is to just wash their hands. You know, they might come, you know, I might craft that goal and they won't touch water because they have a sensory issue.
Right.
You know, the first time they touch that water, that is a huge victory.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And it might take them a year of just touching water before they're actually going to like move their hands back and forth in it. So how does that look onto my worth? It doesn't. It doesn't. You know, I do 100% of the strategies that I know on how to desensitize them to water. You know what I'm trying to say? I do all the things. I build the capacity of the families. We put in all of these things. But ultimately, if that kid doesn't end up washing their hands, it's not a reflection of me.
No.
It just isn't. And so, you know, that's what living non-attached is. It doesn't mean that you don't care, and it doesn't mean that you love. In fact, it means that you do it at the highest level that you can. And then that leads into attachments is what equals suffering. Because suffering comes from disappointment. And disappointment comes from expectations. And where do we get expectations? Attachment. You know, you are attached to an outcome. And when that outcome doesn't happen, you suffer.
Right.
You know, you have anguish. And so, you know, one of my poems I wrote, Buddha said we're meant to suffer.
Right.
You know, because we're meant to let go of these attachments. And it's so easy to sit here on, you know, this call with you and just like say that. It is so hard to live it.
It is so hard to live it.
It is so hard to live it.
It's like, that's why it's a whole structure of philosophy of years of people like writing books and things about it, because it is such a difficult thing to do. You know, one of the sayings they used to say all the time at whatever was expectations or reservations for resentment, right? Because like if you don't do this or whatever, or I've given you so many chances of this or whatever, you know what I mean? And there's some times where it's like you have to be a little bit attached to an outcome for your own self-worth, you know what I mean? Because you're like, whether it be like, it might look weird to somebody else, like I broke that plate. You're like, what do you mean? Why are you happy you broke the plate? You're like, because the plate needs to be broken. We need to break again in order for me to fix it. You know what I mean? Well, I'm learning that Japanese plate fixing technique with the gold. So I had to
Yes.
break the plate, and then so that makes the breaking of the plate something good. Whereas it might seem like a bad expectation. I don't know. We kind of need the attachments in order to grow, because if we were just completely detached and sitting there all the time, then we would be stagnant. There would be no life to us. There would be no growth to our process. We have to do this.
Exactly.
That's what it's about.
And this is the thing, like, I recently realized through a life event, I thought I was living that life event non-attached. I really did. I believed I did. And then that structure crumbled, and I could see all the places I held attachments. And I convinced myself that I was doing it exactly the way you were supposed to, out of service, out of this, out of that. And then it crumbles, and it's like I'm in complete despair. And it's like it snuck up on me. Because we, especially for those of us who strive, some of us have that innate grit in them. I definitely identify with that archetype. Outcomes do matter. Right. You know what I mean? Like, and there's a part of me, last year, I should share it with you. I really should share it with you. I wrote a series, This Year's Past. It was based off of the Charles Dickens, The Ghost of This Year's Past. And I did it for my year of 2019. I looked at the past, and I looked at the present, and I looked at the future. And one of the things that was like an overarching theme for me was this whole concept that if I wasn't so attached to holding the light for other people, of bringing people onto a path of self-discovery, if I didn't hold those attachments, what would be my purpose for trying so hard? Right. Like, this isn't easy. No. Like working all day and writing presentations and crafting things so that I can discuss really complicated metaphysical things with just everyday people. Because a lot of that's really what I'm doing. Is I'm taking these concepts that come from a spiritual background, and I'm bringing in the psychology of it or the neuroscience of it. I'm tying it to the science more so than I am to the mystic side. So that everyday people can hear what this has to offer. And it's not easy work. It's hard work. And it's like, so why would I do this if I didn't care so much? Right. But that caring is an attachment in and of itself. But I have to be attached to that right now. Otherwise, I might as well sit down and eat a donut and relax.
Dude. Just let your feet float right up off the floor, because that's what it's doing. It's keeping those attachments keep us grounded, right?
Yeah,
because
they keep us in the physicality.
Well, yeah, because like you're saying, like, okay, so I gave a lot of my time and everything to this thing and had like a huge attachment to it, and then realized like that is not at all a good attachment for me to have. Like, it's not good for me to be attached, and it's not good for me to be attached to it. So like let it go, and then all of a sudden you just kind of like dissipate. Like, where does all it go? With a purpose. Like, what the hell is the purpose then? What is my purpose then? Why do all this? What was the point of all that? You know what I mean? And suddenly you're purposeless. So you have to maintain some sort of attachment. You have to take that, like that little bit of suffering. You're like the second person. You were like, I went through this today. There's someone else that posted about, like, ever since I moved here, all of these terrible, weird things have actually gone on, even though it looks really great from the outside. But, it actually has been really, really rough. But she was talking about how much she had learned from it, how much she had gained from it, how much strength she had seen. And she never even realized that other people had too, that were living in this different experience than what she had been used to. And then how much that gave her, how much this gives you, how much this gives me. Like there's been some pretty rough road, you know what I'm saying? There's some pretty crazy stuff. Sometimes it's like, who can identify with that? Who can? You know what I mean? Like, that's your own unique, my own unique, their own unique individual path. No one is supposed to identify with it in that sense. That's yours. It's just for you. It's special just for you. It isn't anybody else's.
My brokenness and the way I shatter is specifically mine.
That's right.
All of my pieces.
That's right. And mine is specifically for me. And that's kind of like a really beautiful thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's like it's the uniqueness, the individuality, right? That individuation or bust, that like there is 1,000 grains of sand and only this one looks like this.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
It's
only one. It's like my thoughts are all trapped in a bottle. Like, sorry, like a Chaz Michaels moment, but that's what it is. It's the beauty of it. So that I think that this moment in time gives us that chance to get to know ourselves on a level that we wouldn't. I mean, how lucky are we to see, this is how I would react, this is what happened when this happened, and this is how we can help our kids, help in the future, do something that's beneficial to make something new.
Yes.
And completely wholly unique, because everything that is built up to this point built something that was essentially broken.
Yeah.
And when it shatters, and when we get to look at all the little parts of it on the floor, we get to see what parts worked and what parts didn't. And we also get to see what we didn't really need and what was greatly needed that we didn't have. And we can do that in ourselves, in our family units, and in our communities. And you're right. I mean, like, we really haven't had the chance to do this since I mean, as a whole, probably ever. Because you think about other pandemics like the Spanish flu or anything prior to this, they were locked up in their homes without the internet, without Skype.
And they were doing, a lot of people have done farms, so the work never stopped. They were mending their clothes and doing all of the, now we have Grubhub or whatever.
Exactly.
It's gonna call and have some food delivered today. You know what I mean? But they were still doing their daily chores. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's not that we're not doing our daily chores, we are, but it's just definitely different. I think, one thing that I'm being really called to say is I hope, and again, that's probably an attachment, but the hope is that from this, people at least realize that they are on a path. So many people just wake up, go to work, cook dinner, give the kids a bath, and go to bed.
Right.
Wake up, go to work, go grocery shopping, take the kid to whatever, go to bed. And they don't realize that they're here for a purpose. And it is that purpose that is going to, if we can wake to our own uniqueness and our own individualization of what we have to offer. And that was actually the session that I taught this past week. It was on how do you value the individuality of children when you're serving in a collective? And how do you build capacity for individuality when you're working, in a collective? And really what that piece is all about is discovering it within yourself. Because if you don't know how to find it within you, you can't cultivate that in others.
Right.
And this is the perfect time to figure that out. But first, we have to be willing to sit with ourselves. Mm-hmm. And what am I finding through this is people can't sit with themselves.
Yeah.
Would you want to sit with somebody that you really dislike? I was a me before that I didn't like. And I remember I would go to bed every night and I'd be like, if I just stopped doing this, if I just stopped doing this, if I just did this, if I just stopped doing this. And finally, after like 5 years of insomnia, this is a true story. After like 5 years of insomnia, I was like, man, if I put that much effort into actually doing those things, I wonder what would happen. So instead of putting all that insomnia nightly effort into wishing, I just started doing. Mm-hmm. And I'm a different person. I did all of the things that I like myself now, but I didn't like myself at a time, And I'm not going to say I see the beauty in all of it. I couldn't see the beauty before. And I think that there's a saying that I say every night or and every morning or every time I meditate or I bow out of the circle or whatever. It's thank you, God, for my life. Thank you for all of it. And that piece, all of it, to really mean it. Thank you for all of it. I'm not going to cherry pick the pieces that I'm thankful for. No, I'm thankful for all of it, and to really, really mean that from the roots of your feet. And you can't do that unless you've, number one, gone through some healing, or, you know what I mean? Like, because there's a time in my life I could not have said that and meant it. Yeah, I could have said it. But I absolutely wouldn't have meant it. Right. And when I was that person, I was reactionary. When I was that person, I did a lot of, but you. When I was that person, I was able to pick out the flaws in everyone else, but I could not put that mirror on myself. And once I finally learned how to turn that mirror on myself and say, you know what? You responded out of a pattern of behavior, and that pattern protected you at some point, so we're going to thank it, but it is not serving you. So you need to make a choice. You know better and you need to do better, or continue making that choice and continue to have this negative, rumination about how you feel about it. You feel that way because you know better.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's where that leads me right back to the beginning of what I said, is once you start becoming self-reflective, it never stops.
Right.
It never stops.
I think that
just brought us full circle.
I was about to say, I think that's like a great stopping point too, because you did. It was so good to talk to you always.
I just enjoy you so much. I'm so thankful that we have incarnated together.
Seriously, I can't wait till there's like actual human interaction again.
I know, it's gonna be like, are you coming here this weekend or am I going there?
Oh my goodness, we'll just meet in the middle like last time. We'll go all over, dude. Seriously, you need to get like the outside sunshine and hugs.
Hugs. I miss hugs so bad.
Yes.
Well, and that's like, I'll tell one more story and then we'll be done. But, so my friend's mom passed away last week, and she was a mother to me. She was there when my parents could not be there for me. And so when I heard the news of her passing, it was, very heavy. And they decided to hold a funeral. And the reason I decided not to go, which is really where a lot of the strife came in, because I wanted to be there so desperately, but I cannot not hug.
Right.
I can't socially distance.
Right.
I'm a horrible social distancer.
Yes.
And so like for an event like that, I wouldn't keep space. And so for out of the safety of others around me, it's like I watched live stream. Well, that's not connective. I mean, I'm glad that I was able to at least do that.
Right.
But it comes down to hugs. Like, we need hugs.
We need hugs.
We need it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so virtual hug.
Virtual hug.
Thank you, Heather. I adore you.
Thank you, Jana. I adore you. I love you so much.
I love you so much.
Have a wonderful night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.